Hey Chinmay, how's it going? Hi guys. Wow, people are really excited about this camera. Okay, Ashit sent me a request. I'm just adding live chat. Hi Malia.
Hello.
Hey, what's up? Sorry guys, sorry I
How's
got a
it?
little late. Good. How's it going?
What's going on? Just bored
Sorry,
as usual.
going on. Has the R5 made you sleepless since the announcement?
I, I I'm excited about it, but I don't know if I'm like I don't think I'm going to be looking at it as a serious contender until like a DxO Mark rating comes out.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, I
I
know what
think
you mean.
yeah, it's. I mean, I was
No,
super
so
excited. Go ahead.
I know what you mean. I'm a little skeptical, especially that I don't know if people have been reading, but there's a lot of like news about the camera overheating and
Yeah,
in video, and which is expected. I mean I can't blame them. It's an 8K camera and what a 4K 120 FPS and all that. So overheating is expected. It's not going to work like 1080p or normal 4K 24. Sony also had these problems initially for the first, I think, 5 or 6 years. So, um, you know, things will get better, but with firmware updates and all. But right as of now, Canon's released a statement with a couple of pointers in terms of how long you can use the different recording modes and stuff.
I think it's 20 minutes or something like that, right?
Yeah. 20 minutes, and then once it overheats, then you have like 3 minutes, and then after 10 minutes, you can record for 3 minutes, and
They have a cool
it
down
goes
period
on.
now. Yeah, no, I mean
Yeah.
it's I mean I think it's better that they're probably coming out with it and saying that hey, you know what, it's not going to be completely seamless like it was before. I think
Yeah,
that was one of
which
the
is
bigger
fair enough.
Sony's bigger mistakes where they didn't admit to any
Yeah,
issues, and that's when it kind
yeah,
of the whole thermal throttling gate opened up from. But
exactly,
I like
exactly.
what they're kind of doing with this. I really do. I think it's a great camera. I think it's kind of setting the precedent
Yeah,
for everybody else to also come out with a good camera. Because now it's
correct.
like if you don't come up with this camera that kind of matches it in terms of specs, it
Yeah,
won't make sense. But having said that, I don't know how useful 8K is right now, man, for everybody.
I mean, okay, if I had the money to spend on good computers and a lot of memory, so for people who don't
Yeah,
know, the R5 and R6, sorry, the R5 comes with a CF Express and an SD card, and you have to use the CF Express for 8K and for 4K 120. But 4K 60 and 1080 options, etc., are available to record on the SD card. Now the thing is, people don't know that a 512 GB CF Express card, I think in India costs around
80,
35 or 40, 80. Seriously? Okay,
80K.
that
Like
was
if
25.
you're yeah, because if
That's
you're
crazy.
importing it, I think a 128 is about 35.
Wow. Give me a
Yeah.
second here.
So
So
138 is yeah 138 is I'm just checking Amazon right now.
no, so yeah, Amazon India, I can't figure out. I can't see it. I don't think it's available also.
Yeah.
But the good part is most Indian manufacturers and I mean at least the Indian dealers do
Huh.
hand out a 512 or at least a 256 GB
I think
complimentary
the
card.
512 was in the C500 and the C300, which are like
Correct.
10 lakhs and I think 7 lakhs.
So
So,
so with my when I bought the 1DX Mark
huh.
II, I received I think a 256 GB CFast and a CF card complimentary with a card reader, which
Hmm.
was a big deal at that time. The total value was around 50 or 55K,
Hmm.
which is not bad. I think so. I feel like Canon India is going to probably um,
I'm sure they'll
you
bundle
know
something, but
yeah
see,
yeah yeah
my thing is okay, fine. You're looking at even a CFast in India, at least on Amazon, is about 27K for a 128.
yeah
So the minute
yeah
you go to a 256, at least look at 40. And if you're looking at maybe double of that, I'd say 60,
yeah
65, 70 for a 512,
yeah
which will
yeah.
last you about,
But
yeah,
512 GB is supposedly going to last you 15 minutes, I think.
20 minutes, 18
15,
minutes.
20 minutes, 80
Yeah.
minutes. Got it. Got it.
So, I mean,
Interesting.
this, yeah, I see it as a camera. I don't know if it's going to be for wedding videographers or
Sure.
anybody of
Sure.
that sort, at least shooting raw. I think a lot of
Yeah.
indie filmmakers would probably see a lot more usefulness from
True.
the Canon RAW, definitely.
True.
But
True.
again, it's like you're going to be spending so much to even shoot, like just in memory. I think you're going to be
Yeah.
spending
Yeah.
about 1.2 lakhs for
Yeah.
one GB. So
True.
I don't know if they're ever going to launch like a HDMI out, because
Yeah.
I mean
That
clean
would
out to
be.
an, yeah, that make
Yeah.
more sense,
That
right?
would make. Yeah. That would make more sense. Have they said anything about it? I haven't gone into those
I
details, but
think
have
they're
they?
giving a HDMI 60p out,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it's going to be raw. So,
Hmm.
but I mean, then again,
Interesting.
they're offering 10-bit
To
on
inbuilt.
yeah, in camera 10-bit, so that's not bad.
Yeah.
But again, it's who's going to be using that
Correct.
raw is. I mean, I think they could have done like a oversampled 4K raw, and that would, I mean,
Yeah.
but I'm assuming the
Yeah.
8K raw, it makes more sense because they're not really doing any kind of processing on the camera for
In
it.
camera. Correct.
Yeah, so I get that, but
But
it's
what do you feel about the how do you feel about the camera, like hand holding it? How do you like it?
I really like, honestly, I love it, but knowing Canon is just, I'm just like kind of a little
Yeah.
held back,
No,
with my excitement
I
about it.
meant how do you feel about the weight of the camera, and have you got a chance to hold it yet?
No, but I don't think these cameras really like
They're really
they can.
tiny. They're really
Yeah,
tiny.
no, but you got
They're
big
really
hands as
portable.
well.
Yeah, I've got really big hands. I'm sorry, guys. I'm like a really big guy, but that's the R5 for people who've been questioning, and it works really well. It's got a touchscreen display. This one doesn't flip out, but
Such
sorry,
bad
I just
jokes.
had to, yeah, I just had to get it in, and we could have done a teaser with this, like
Yeah,
that would have been fun.
hold it up to camera so it looks bigger.
But
No, but
to be very honest, yesterday, I mean, I wasn't at home and I didn't watch the live session
mm,
of the release, but I did read up a lot and I've been watching reviews, and that's when we got this idea about talking about the camera because I'm not even joking. The amount of people who've been messaging me and asking me, okay, I know you're going to switch now. You're switching from Sony, or you're going to switch. Are you going to still going to be a Fuji guy or Sony guy? Are you going back to Canon? And to be very honest, I mean, I don't mind trying it. I'm definitely going to think of picking up the R5. The R6, unfortunately, doesn't make sense for, I mean, someone like you and me.
mm.
But the R5 definitely, why not? I think it's a great package in
Yeah, no,
terms of.
there's a bigger thing that's happened with these two cameras being launched, right? It's not just about the R5 and the R6. It's what they've done is kind of
Yeah,
lit a fire under everybody's ass,
yeah, yeah,
and now
yeah, yeah.
now the camera companies are going to be going for stakes. So now, if you're looking at like the Nikon Z6 and you're looking at the Fuji X-T4 and all these
Yeah,
cameras, you're looking at a full frame Canon. What do you say? Color sign in at about 2,200 for the R6 and about $4,000
correct,
for the thing, right? So it's pretty much in the same area. So I mean, spending another 15K to get
correct.
a camera it's not going to hurt you that much, especially when you're spending that much.
True,
But
true.
I feel like what's going to happen with this is companies like Fuji are really going to step up and kind of put
Hmm.
something out
Hmm.
there, and like Nikon is
Yeah,
already doing some great stuff, but now I think they're looking at
true.
launching another set of Z6S and
A
Z6.
pro,
No, it's the
yeah, a
same,
pro version. No, okay,
Z6 and Z7, the S
okay,
version with the two card
understood,
slots. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest
understood.
complaint that most people had about it.
Correct.
So, yeah, so I see that kind of maybe making it a little bit more exciting for everybody else as well. It's
Hmm.
not just
Hmm. Hmm.
Canon's kind of, this is what I liked about the competition that these guys kind of put out there, because
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
going to see some really exciting cameras over the next couple of years.
True,
But
true.
also, I mean,
Hopefully,
I think,
hopefully
yeah.
work resumes so that we can afford these cameras as well.
Yeah, it's like I was doing the numbers and I was like, okay, honestly, if I was going
Yeah.
to pick up a kit of this, what would I pick up, right?
Correct,
I'd probably pick
correct.
up like that 2870 f2, the
Hmm.
Canon
Yeah,
R5 with a
yeah,
grip. So that I think
yeah.
it's launching at 340 in India.
Correct.
339, right? And so with a
Correct.
grip, I'd say another 30 or 40K, and plus batteries and the thing. And I don't see it coming under 6 lakhs. So you need
Hmm.
to,
Hmm. Hmm.
because I mean, with one
So
lens, right?
yeah, so I mean, that's what I also want to talk about. A lot of people ask me, have been asking me about my experience with the Sony A7R series, and I've been using them since a long time. I currently have the A7R4 for people who don't know, and people are asking me, okay, you know what, should we still kind of look at Sony or should we just go Canon? And I feel there are a couple of things that people need to consider. It's not only the body price, it's
Mm.
also the lenses available. Sony has a lot of third-party options which are made for the mount, which are made from Tamron and Sigma and stuff like that, which are really good value for money if you don't want to go into the first-party mount, like if you don't want to buy a Sony mount. But Sony also has a lot
Mm.
of cheaper because they've been obviously longer in the mirrorless game. They have a lot of cheaper options available for their mirrorless cameras. Whereas right now, since Canon, it's only been a year and a half, 2 years since they've entered the game,
Mm.
they still have a lot of time to build in terms of building their mirrorless kit. Though their
Mm.
EF adapter, the RF to EF adapter, works really well. I use that with all my EF lenses when I own
Mm.
the EOS R. So it works really well. But in case you want the latest and greatest and the sharpest and stuff like that, Sony still
Naked
has a
lenses.
wider range. Yeah, though what Canon is doing with their lenses, I think is more impressive than what Sony is has done till now. Canon's gone all
Yeah.
out with like their 1.2, and
So
that
the
is
thing
their
is,
strength.
I think also it was kind of the strategy that because Sony was one of the first guys to kind of set up the whole mirrorless
Yeah,
camera
yeah.
format. I mean, other than Olympus with the pens, but the thing is, what happened with Sony? I don't know if people know this, but their lens mount was actually meant for APS-C. It wasn't meant for
Hmm.
full frame. It was the NEX5, NEX6, and
Yeah,
NEX7,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
they adapted. They figured they could adapt that to a full
yeah.
frame thing, and because of the low flange distance for mirrorless, they
Correct,
adapted it. But
correct.
that's why it kind of limits the lenses from being as open as they could be. So it's a lot more
True.
complicated lens design for them.
Very true.
And that's one of the bigger parts of what Canon did was they went from scratch, so they could just choose how big
True,
their lens mount needed to be, and that's why they're
true.
coming out. Like even with Nikon, they have a f 0.95 lens coming out, the
Yeah,
Noct
yeah,
lens, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's because they chose the size of the diameter that they want to go with, and
Correct.
that's something. Well, I don't think we're ever going to get a f1 lens, but I don't
Yeah.
know if anybody's used an f1 lens, but it's practically impossible to get
Hmm,
focus on
hmm,
the
hmm.
thing that you want to get focused on.
That is a manual focus lens. I mean, it's a very, very niche lens. Even though I watched a couple of reviews about that, the Noct, the 0.95, with
Hmm.
comparing it against Leica M 0.95 Noctilux or whatever it's called, and this was miles ahead in terms of sharpness. It was miles ahead in terms of clarity, chromatic aberration, lack of chromatic aberration, and it
Hmm.
made the $10,000 or $15,000 Noctilux from Leica look like a cheap 5,000 rupee 51.8. It looked
Hmm.
that bad in comparison. So, I mean, definitely what Nikon and what these brands are doing in terms of investing more money into their lenses is a good idea.
Hmm.
And I still feel like right now, currently, it's too early to talk about who's switching, whether you should invest in it. I mean, who has been asking me, I kind of suggest, wait for the reviews to
Waiting,
come out,
yeah.
yeah, because it's a lot of money.
So
And
I
it's,
mean, that's like for me. Then this is the problem with Canon for me, at least, like exclusively for me. I know that a lot of the Canon users are complete fanboys about the thing, but it's
yeah.
just like the A7R, sorry, the 5D Mark IV is a much better holding dynamic range than the 5D SR or the S and the higher
True,
megapixel thing. And like
true,
if you
true.
really read about how much depth of I mean how much dynamic range they had, I don't think the 5D SR had more than 12 and a half stops in
Correct,
comparison to your Sonys, which are giving you close to 15. And
correct.
I know that it doesn't make sense to a lot of people that could kind of pixel peep, but
Yeah.
I can always tell a Canon picture like
Hmm,
just by
hmm,
the
hmm, hmm.
highlights that are kind of burning off here. They
Yeah,
kind of go into this magenta thing. And
yeah,
I can tell you, like I
yeah.
can look at a a picture and say, okay, fine, this is probably shot on a Canon, because a lot of that
Yeah.
clipping happens, and you need to be a little bit more of an expert with the S and the SR to kind of get like a perfectly balanced picture. And this goes into
True.
a lot of what we were talking about before as well, right? A great camera sensor can reduce your cost of lighting and like
True.
other like even like a tripod, because
Post
if you have,
production as well. Yeah.
yeah, because
True.
if you have like a low light beast, you don't need a tripod. You
True.
If you have great shadow recovery, you don't
Yeah.
need lights to fill in. So
In
it kind
body
of makes,
stabilization.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Mm.
it kind of makes your entire thing a lot smaller. So basically, by getting a good camera, a good sensor, you're paying a lot less for other things.
True.
And
True.
that's the biggest, and I feel like that's still the biggest fault that I had with the S and the SR. I never even tried it. Like, I saw some sample files from it. It was so terrible that I never even
Mm.
tried the camera. Like, I never gave it a chance.
So I actually switched from the A7 R3 to the SR a
Hmm.
couple of years back, like 4 5 years back. And that was my first Canon camera after since a long time. I was with Sony for like 3 or 4 years.
Hmm.
A couple of things kind of like kept on irritating me, like the back of the LCD screen. They had a bit of sorry, A7R2 to 5DSR, not the A7R3. But they had a couple of problems with the LCD screen. They had a couple of problems with the color tint. The white balance was off, and I just felt like I wanted to, even though I was going back to a DSLR camera versus a mirrorless. I still
Hmm.
felt like I was very happy. I used that camera. I bought it used for like a 1.2 lakhs. I used it for like 2 years and sold it for like 1.2 lakhs. So
Oh, nice. Uh-huh.
that's the thing about Canon cameras, the resale value, and there's always someone buying a Canon camera.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, I being a Fuji owner, being a Sony still is better off now,
It's
but
gotten, yeah, much better.
being a Fuji owner, I mean, it is difficult to find people who kind of trust the system. Canon's like,
Hmm.
people who own rental houses, who shoot weddings. I mean, it's just a trusted name. So I think that's an advantage that Canon has, and they could survive this long without going all out into the mirrorless world.
Yeah. I think
Because of that name.
it's also like, it's in terms of tech, right? They've already established themselves. So I think they kind of take their own time to kind of create their own mirrorless camera as well. The
Yeah,
EOS R was just kind of like okay, we're kind of thinking of this, and we're going to work towards it. But the R5 is
yeah,
their first serious camera. Let's just be real about that.
yeah.
The
True,
EOS R was
true,
just
for sure. Yeah,
like a very stopgap kind of camera. But
yeah, yeah.
I think they've definitely done something special. But again, it's like even the 1DX Mark III is a new sensor, and that's also apparently the same sensor that goes into R6 as well, which has got
R6,
like, I
correct,
think, about 13 to 14 stops of for dynamic range. So I think they
correct.
do realize where their faults are, and they're making it a little better.
Hmm, hmm,
But
hmm,
up until I think I see a 14 to 14.5 plus stops of dynamic range, I don't
hmm,
think it's a very feasible camera for me to
hmm.
buy. I'm sure there are a lot
Sure,
of people that would love to
sure, sure.
kind of move into the thing, but I don't see it as a feasible camera, because for the kind of like images I'm getting out of my Fuji, if I'm going to go
Yeah.
down like almost by 30 or 40% on the still side, I don't see why
Hmm.
I would let that happen to my work as
So
a B
I
camera. But
feel
then again,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no,
but
sorry,
as
go
a
ahead,
B
please.
camera, I don't know how,
Hmm, hmm,
yeah, 6 lakhs, spending 6 lakhs on a B camera does not make
hmm.
sense to me,
True.
because you're already
I
spending
feel
so much
like
money on the other things.
for someone like you, a couple of other friends who have invested in the Fuji medium format or who have other medium format cameras, um, I don't think it's a great idea to sell that and like get into this unless you
Hmm.
really need the 8K or unless you need the 10 FPS or whatever. But even then, I feel like there's still a perfect bifurcation between a medium format camera, even a 50R, which costs about the same 50S, 50R. The Fujifilm costs the same amount of money as a R5. I feel like someone who's shooting in a studio,
Hmm.
someone who's shooting fine
Hmm.
art, landscape work, they are still there's still no reason to look at those Canons or the Sonys, because what you're getting from those Fuji files is still miles ahead. But someone who is shooting hybrid work, who wants versatility, who wants a fast focusing camera, a smaller footprint, maybe stuff like that, or tilting screen, flip out screen. there are stuff, there are things that are kind of positive about the R5 as well.
Hmm.
So it really depends. I think the main competitors or the main people who are going to be confused are people who are looking at buying the A7R3, A7R4
Yeah.
for the R5, and the R6. The people who were looking at the A7 III
Hmm.
and the XT4. I've been getting a lot of people asking me, is the XT4 better or the or is the R6 better? And now I feel like with the full frame sensor and just a little bit more money and 8 stops of stabilization, you're getting 4K 60 FPS as well. It's a
Yeah.
tough call. I think I would direct more people towards the R6 instead of the XT4 now.
Yeah, no, it's
But yeah,
definitely. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like if I don't, I like, I sense of like uh, the colors and all of that, but just does not make sense when you're looking at the R6 and you're looking at the XT4. That's about like just a few like maybe 20 or 30, 25,000 bucks difference, and
yeah,
I can't justify the XT4 right now. Because I mean, it's
true,
great colors for
true,
somebody who's already used it, but recommending it to somebody, it's
true.
like even to myself, I'd be like,
Hmm,
but I'm getting a full
hmm,
frame. I'm getting
hmm,
120p
hmm.
on the R6, right? So it's just
Correct.
it makes a lot more sense. And this is exactly why I'm saying
The
this
sorry, the
year is going
R6,
to be really
the
interesting.
the R6 caps out at 4K 60.
No, no,
It
it does. Oh no, sorry, it does HD at
Yeah,
120.
120.
Sorry, sorry,
So
sorry.
that is also a
Yeah, yeah,
big kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
this thing. It's a
No,
big
but
thing for
even
people who are
4K 60
choosing.
is yeah,
It's more
because
than enough.
even
I mean,
Fuji
I
does.
can't imagine. Yeah, yeah,
Because Fuji also does, and it's all 10-bit if I'm not mistaken. But I think the
yeah. It
only
is.
issue with the R6 is it's all IPV. There's no all I for any of the thing, which is a little
Okay.
bit more stressful on the machine. So you're gonna have to
True.
make proxies and edit.
Recom-
But I mean, they're talking
Yeah.
about it. I don't think they're interested in being a stills company anymore.
Yeah. And one big thing and one thing that no one can argue with Canon about is the focus, and they've improved the focus so
Yeah.
much now with the dual pixel Part Two, the part whatever Mark II version. But I mean, I saw a few tests, and again, they're very limited clips available online. That thing flies.
Yeah, yeah.
It's definitely the best. Yeah, it's the best focus system available, live view based focus system available right now.
So I think, I mean, I'd have to disagree with that in terms of live view.
Okay,
I don't know. Have you used the A9
I have,
for
I
stills?
have.
For
For
stills?
stills, I have.
So
Yeah,
I still feel the A9 is just one of those cameras that I mean for the focus only. I'm not talking about the image quality at all, but
sure.
the focus on the A9. I don't know about the A9 too, but the A9 is stellar. Like I remember shooting
Hmm, hmm,
something for Skechers at 1.8, and I focused on the shoe, and it
hmm.
as that person took off, that shoe just stayed in focus while that person was running,
That's
and it just
that's
stayed
true.
like didn't
That's
move, and I was like the first time you use something like that, especially when you've been
yeah,
using like for me medium formats, taking one picture, that's it.
yeah.
You're just putting the shutter down, and just it shoots
True,
20 pictures in 1 second. I was like, wow,
true.
and that's crazy focus, and that's
Yeah,
apparently the same
yeah,
focus system that's in the A7R4 as well, but because
yeah.
of
That's the
the
one I
mechanical
use.
shutter,
Yeah,
you don't still, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
because of the
And
mechanical
also,
shutter, you get a little bit of lag.
correct. And I've noticed that. I've noticed that. I'm again very happy with the A7 R4 when I came from the GFX 50 and the 100 and the XT3 and I switched to the A7 R4 because I wanted one camera that does it all. That camera, sorry, my cat is gone crazy, but that camera was ridiculous. Say the first time I picked it up, I just took it up to my terrace. I was with a 24-105 kit lens and I shot these kites like mid-flight going into a battle. Every single
Hmm.
shot was in focus 10
Yeah.
FPS, and I was like, wow. And obviously the croppability of a 60 megapixel sensor was amazing.
So
So
I think with like when you're looking at something over 25 30 feet from you to about
yeah,
infinity, the focus there,
yeah,
like the amount the lens is actually moving to keep in focus is very little. So I feel like that
correct,
range is really good. But when you're looking at like something that's coming towards you, running towards you, that's where it kind of really tests it, right? Because you're moving
correct.
from the far focus to mid focus to kind of like as close as you can. But
True.
I was really impressed. There was also, I think, this guy, what's his name? Jared Poland did one comparison between the 1DX Mark III in
I
mirrorless
saw that.
mode, which yeah,
I saw
and the
that.
thing,
Yeah.
and he still thought that the A9 was a little faster, but
True.
I mean, you gotta understand the A9 is just something that's like it's out of this world. I mean, we're
True.
all getting there
True.
eventually with the cameras, but it's
True.
out like you can't compare all the cameras to that. But if they've gotten it to about
True.
90%, where
Hmm. Hmm.
the Sony was, it was thing. But having said that, the files that I had to pull out of the A9, I didn't like.
Hmm.
Like I was just like
Oh,
it
really?
took me
Okay.
a little bit again, like talking about Sony files. Nah? So when you're sitting with Sony files, you always have to baseline and then have to
Yeah.
color it. Because you can't
Correct.
you can't go straight into coloring because you need to kind of first
True.
get your white balance right. You need to get your
Yeah.
make sure your reds
Yeah.
in your skin aren't too high, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
start to work. But
But Fuji
it
really
took a little
spoils
bit
you
of
in that
effort. But
case.
I mean, I
Yeah.
got there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I
Fuji
mean
really spoils
the
you.
more the GFX 50S, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
again this is a camera for one camera that the R5 can do sports, it can do wildlife, it can do uh,
Correct.
indie film work, it can do
Correct.
campaign like work, and that's I don't
Correct.
think you'd need another camera. I mean, 45 megapixels is great. It's a really like sweet spot where your files aren't as
I
big as
agree.
it. I mean, like where it's stressing
I agree.
your laptop out. But I
Yeah.
think that's I mean, I think it's a sweet spot for the next maybe 4 or 5 years. I hope that people end
Yeah.
up push this 60, 70, 80 megapixels. Let's just get I think 50 megapixels with great color, like 16-bit color, would be
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
that I would like to see from a camera. Like I don't care about 60 megapixels, but 16-bit
Yeah.
color shows me how serious
For
you are as a
sure.
camera company.
For
And
sure.
that the thing is, I don't know if you noticed the thing about Sony's marketing is I don't know if they made this everybody do this, but it's all about numbers, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
talking about when they talk about autofocus points, they talk about 400, 800,
Yeah.
2000.
Yeah.
Now these
Yeah.
guys have come up with what 1500
Yeah.
focusable points
Yeah. Yeah.
in the thing. It's just it's what do the numbers make sense to us?
It doesn't. It doesn't
You're
matter
telling
to
me
me
that
as a
it's
professional photographer.
yeah.
So I don't know how it matters to anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just like if you put in two what do you say processes in there to make it a little faster and future proof it. So basically, yeah, it may two
Correct.
processes may be too much for the software you have right now because it's overkill. But think
Correct.
about it for the next 3 years or 2 years. 2 years down the line, that
Correct.
you can actually tweak those sensors up to do a little bit more. I
Correct.
mean, if you're not going to be updating your cameras every 2 years, at least make sure it's like proofed for the next 5 years.
For
And
sure. For
that's
sure.
that's I mean I feel like that's again they're going to come out with another camera I'm pretty sure in the next 2 or 3 years, the
Yeah.
R5 Mark II, but
Yeah.
I don't want to spend money like that. It's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in this world that we are living in where we need something a little bit more sustainable in terms of cameras as
True.
well, because the amount of electronic waste that we're putting out there is just it
For
doesn't
sure.
make sense
For
to
sure.
keep, and Sony needs to also like think about the cameras that they're coming out and make like if the A7R
Correct.
Mark IV come out with a good camera. Don't come out with a camera that you could say, hey, this is like a intermediate camera, and then we're coming out with
Yeah.
something else. Because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
stupid. There's a lot
Yeah.
of money lost. It's like I know that their stock prices go up every time somebody buys a camera, but
Correct.
it's not feasible for the planet.
For sure. True that.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, I was also looking at a few comparisons that I think not DP review, DxO Mark has done a very fun comparison about the between the GFX 100,
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen
the
it.
R5, the 5D Mark 4, 5D SR, the A7R4, and the XT4. Okay, very
Is it
random
DP
comparison.
or is it DxO? Because I know
No,
DxO
it's
Mark doesn't
DxO.
have, they don't have any of the
No, so
Fuji cameras on their review site, correct?
yeah, for some, I mean, I don't know why, but it's not a comparison in terms of the numbers, but just a comparison in terms of okay, you know what, if you're getting into the market and investing in your first system, which one it should be. So, you know, the stuff that I kind of got out of that was if you're in medium format or if you're looking in medium format, don't even consider anything else.
Hmm.
That's one section. And then there's your XT4 and your A7 III and your R6 now. And the R5 is somewhere in between with the A7 R4. So, for someone like me, I'll be very honest. Um, I don't care that much about the video part of it. I'm happy with 4K video. I'm happy with 4K 60 maximum. I don't need 120 FPS. I definitely don't need 8K. I would like 4K RAW, which they haven't included in this. And
Hmm.
that's something I was really upset about because, to be very honest, I mean, when you're uploading to Instagram and you're uploading to, YouTube and all that, I think a 4K or a 1080 file is more than enough. So you give me 4K at 60 FPS in RAW, and I will buy that camera, regardless of your, what needs to be attached on top and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
that's something that I feel like is still missing from a lot of like good cameras. I know the Blackmagic does that, and a couple of other cameras do that, but
Yeah.
I'm still
Like
kind
I-
of missing
like
out on
even
that.
even company like Fuji, if they put like a 1080p raw, like that would get people excited
Yeah,
about it. It's not like
yeah,
forget the
yeah,
fact that
yeah,
it's 4K. I mean, I get the 4K
yeah,
aspect that, and
yeah,
again, these number game pushing it up there. But how many
yeah.
people actually deliver in 4K?
True,
I know that people shoot 4K and then kind of crop in and stuff like that to kind of give them the thing. But how many? I don't shoot. Like I think
true.
on my phone, I know I have an old phone, and I
Mhm.
like on YouTube. I think the highest resolution that I see on thing is I think 480p,
Correct,
and that's all that shows on my phone. And
correct.
most of our work is done on our phones right now. I don't think too many people work on the laptops unless they need to do the editing that eventually goes on
True,
the phone anyway.
true.
So, like just if like they just launched a in-camera 1080p RAW, that would be brilliant. Like
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
4K
Raw.
RAW is, yeah, it's doable on
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
but if they even a
yeah.
2.7K RAW, if they
Hmm.
did that,
Hmm. Yeah,
like
that would be a sweet spot.
yeah, I'd be excited about that, man. But
True.
I mean, again, when you look at 8K, and a lot of people say that 8K you can zoom in and you can tighten your frame and you can move that.
Yeah.
But who's gonna like if you need to shoot 40 minutes,
Yeah.
like 1.2 lakhs just in memory cards?
Yeah. Yeah. So but talking about the 8K raw and stuff like that, I was skeptical. I'm sure most people who are, who are on the internet now know who Peter McKinnon is, and he's put out a couple of clips in his YouTube review, and the 8K raw looks sublime. Like I don't know how to explain it.
Hmm.
He shot 4K 120 and he shot 8K raw, and both of
Hmm.
that compared to like C-Log looks sublime. It looks so cinematic and so filmic that I mean it's amazing. So when I saw that, I was like, you know what, maybe there's some truth to that, and there's some like reason why these guys have launched the 8K thing and not wanting to future proof it. But personally, if there's some way for them to release a 4K raw file, even at 24 FPS, I will buy that camera tomorrow. I feel like that's a really good sweet spot. Give me raw, even on a CFast Express, I'm fine with that because it keeps everything like portable. But
You
that
know
would be really
what?
exciting.
Even if they
Yeah.
launched
Yeah.
8K RAW, okay, even if they have 8K RAW, but directly to a like an
Correct.
SSD, that
Correct.
also, and like, okay, fine, you put the RAW directly on that and you create proxies uh, through the software, whatever it is, that's still doable. It does
Correct.
not make sense to me that you want people to spend
Yeah.
like, if they're doing it seriously, it's
Yeah.
just, at least like, okay, so if you're doing a 20-minute, you need 512. You need 512 to do 20 minutes. That's
For sure.
the limit of the
Sure.
camera anyway. But that part just gets me. I mean, like for me, I have about 4 cards that I keep with me at any point. I have four
Mm-hmm.
64 GB cards, and that's kind of enough for me. But imagine having four CFast Express cards. That's like
Yeah.
2.5 lakhs in cards.
That's
It's
crazy. Yeah.
and
That's crazy.
I don't understand.
And my problem is
Like
not also not.
yeah,
Yeah.
that number does not make sense.
Yeah, yeah. My problem is not actually is not with the CFast Express.
Go
My
ahead.
problem is that it's if you are anyway going to limit the camera, not limit it on purpose. I know that there's hardware limitations with having a weather seal body and no fans and stuff like that. So the camera is going to overheat. But I feel like if you're going to do that, plus we're going to be investing and you're going to be on a job or you're on location, you're going to keep on like wondering, cared about the countdown on the camera and in terms of size and in terms of overheating, I feel like you're never going to be convinced. So I feel like if you're still very serious about video, you're going to still pick up a cinema camera. This is still for indie filmmakers, for hybrid shooters, for
Yeah.
someone who's going to shoot once in a while video, but not if you're shooting video professionally and all the time. This is not the video camera for you.
But I mean that could change also, man. Like look at the 2870. Like if you're looking at that camera and this the lens, it's
Hmm.
like it's that big, right? And you're getting
Correct.
the angles that you want a little bit more. I mean, you can move around faster and stuff like that. You can create different things that you can create with the film
Hmm.
camera. I mean, that's what
Hmm.
happened
Hmm.
with the 5D Mark II, right? It kind of set a
True.
precedent of being small that to an extent where people could just kind of place it, put it by hand in comparison to at that point the F700 and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
are massive cameras.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it changed
Yeah.
everything. So I feel there is definitely a market over here that it does make sense for, but it's just I feel like they've chosen kind of a weird way of doing this with the 8K. I get the 8K where they had to match the numbers in terms of the
Correct.
higher resolution for thing, but even if they just
Yeah.
like the R6, if they launch that with RAW and like a CF card, I mean a
Yeah.
CFast card on that,
Yeah.
that would have just been okay. It would have been like I feel like the R6 has been throttled
But
because of
I'm
the
also
R5.
thinking about correct. But I'm also thinking about what the like just imagine the engineers watching this video and they're like, dude, we gave you 8K raw we screen, you're still complaining. So I feel like consumers are never going to be 100% happy. Yeah. You
Yeah,
personally have
no, I mean
like a
it's too
100
much.
megapixel camera. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You have a 100 megapixel
no, but
medium
that's the
format
thing.
camera that shoots raw video as well, and you're still like, but I wish I had like,
No, but it's not even about, but I wish if technology was in a
yeah,
space where it made sense. So like if you had an 8K camera and you had an 8K laptop that would handle it. Okay, let's just look at
yeah,
it
that makes
realistically, right?
sense. Yeah,
An 8K
yeah,
camera, I mean 8K machine to edit
yeah,
thing right now is what? Like a Mac Pro.
yeah,
A Mac Pro, like I think the top of the line. Okay, top of the line setups are about 35,000 US. Okay,
yeah.
that's what 24 lakhs for a
20
camera.
lakhs. Yeah,
So
yeah,
20
yeah.
20 lakhs for a system
Per machine.
to
Yeah,
edit the video out of your 6
correct,
lakh camera.
correct.
So and not including the hard disk that you need for that. So like just to
True,
shoot 8K format on this camera, you need to spend about
true.
34 lakhs, assuming. So I mean
Canon
that
is
makes
not
it
going to
like
be happy about this conversation.
I mean it's not for them to be
I
happy. It's just kind of an
so
honest conversation.
Yeah, so Canon India, gentleman called Kishore, he messaged me like an hour back, and he was like, I'm waiting for the demo piece, so what if I can like share it with you? And I was like, I'm really excited, but at the back of my mind, I was like, dude, how am I going to win like
Edit
sample
it.
the video?
Yeah.
Because I just have a laptop, I don't have an iMac anymore, and I have a 2018 laptop, and I'm like, dude, that's stressful. I'm like, that's a lot of
Is it the
that's a
16
lot
inch
of
or the
hardware.
15 inch?
15, the same one that
Huh.
you have.
Yeah, so I have the same thing. And
Yeah,
like honestly, the 4K
yeah,
files from the Fuji in the
yeah,
all-I format
yeah,
on FCP, which is supposed to be the faster format, I mean the
yeah,
faster
yeah.
software edit on, I still get like
Correct.
stuttering. I still get
Yeah.
drop frames. So I
Correct.
mean, I first of all, I don't know how to make proxies, or I need to learn to how to make proxies if I'm ever going
True.
to test that
True.
camera out. But
True.
I like what the camera does. I definitely
Yeah.
love the fact that it does the 8K. I mean, they put it out there. I'd love
Yeah.
to see
Yeah.
them kind of come back in a few months and then say, hey, you know what? You asked for 4K and we give you 4K. And if they do
Yeah.
that, and that's a problem with why I like Fuji as a company, because they listen to kind of the consumers. Right? Canon kind of
True.
works in a format where they know what they want to give their customers to a large
True.
extent.
True.
So
Hmm.
it's just like I don't know if you're going to see an update from Canon. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I don't think they will say, okay, fine, these
Okay.
guys want this.
Okay. But to be fair, I had the EOS R for 7 to 8 months. Good camera, very decent autofocus in terms of photos. The IO-EF didn't work amazingly well when I owned the camera. But as soon as I was ready to sell it, they had an update which I had for a few days and I tried, and it was vastly improved. And since then, they've released a couple of more updates. So I know that they are listening and they are kind of going the Fuji way now
Hmm.
in terms of listening to the consumers. I know that they are improving stuff and releasing like better, firmware updates regularly. So I am a little positive. I'm not going to be skeptical anymore about Canon. Canon
I mean,
has been
for,
slacking
for
for a
me,
long
it's just
time.
honestly, it's just like it's what they did in the past. It's not even like what
Yeah.
they're doing right now. It's
Yeah.
like for me,
Yeah.
it's more of
Yeah.
hey, they did this to me, that's why I feel like it's wrong. But I mean, if they do come up and say, even like forget 4K,
Yeah.
even if they say 6K
Yeah.
oversampled,
Yeah.
it's great. But I understand the amount of like processing power that goes into converting a file
For
from
sure.
8K to a 4K inside the
Yeah.
camera sometimes, and especially when the camera is already claimed to be overheating at 20 minutes,
Correct.
it's very heavy. So I mean, like,
Yeah.
even if they're not going to give you that, at least give it out to straight to an SD.
Output.
Yeah,
Exactly.
put an
Yeah.
SD, because that's the
Yeah.
throttle point right now. Like, as a camera owner, I'd be
Correct.
like, imagine if I want to get 2 GB or 2 TB on a SSD, it'll cost me
Yeah.
30K.
Correct.
If I want to get 2 TB on CFast, it's going to cost me 2.5 lakhs. Like, it doesn't make
It's
like,
crazy.
those numbers are crazy, right? And it's not like it
It's
can't be
crazy.
done. Like, if you have Blackmagic doing it,
Yeah.
then you'd assume that everybody else can do.
True.
Like, there's one single thing that DJI does really well. The DJI Osmo Pocket, you can
Yeah.
plug it into your phone, and your phone becomes a screen.
Correct.
It's so simple, so seamless.
Yeah.
You just have to turn it on, plug it in, and automatically switch it up, and it works seamlessly.
True.
Fuji hasn't figured that part out. Canon hasn't figured that part out. Like, imagine if you could just plug in through USB-C and have a monitor on top of your thing. You wouldn't have to buy an extra
True.
monitor to view it, and you can get
Monitor.
your Lux and
True.
all of that. I mean, you've already spent a lakh on your phone, which is one of the
Correct.
best viewing things out
Screens. Best
Yeah.
screens ever. Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, just
Yeah.
this simple thing, like something like that,
Yeah.
I know that USB-C rates are way higher than what the RAW format can be, right? So
True.
it's just about them giving it out. I know that if they did that, it would probably cannibalize their entire EOS cinema system. It would.
Yeah. 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 You think so?
Like, why wouldn't it? Like, why would you look at the C300 Mark III after that?
Okay. So I would still look at a cinema camera because of the battery life. The fact that you can like really mount those huge V mount batteries, and
But you
you're
can
still
do it on these also. You can you like a D tap, put
true.
like a
True.
V
True.
mount, and you can do that. So
True. Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
just like I know people that put a V mount in a backpack and use like a D tap into their cameras. So it's not even on their shoulders.
Rahul has something to say about your profile picture, Ashit. Starving Artist Films.
I am a beautiful girl sometimes,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Rahul, don't be mean, man. Okay, should we
Sexist.
answer some question? Should we answer some questions and comments, guys?
Yeah,
We
please.
have
I
like
think
about 14-15 minutes left.
13 minutes.
13 minutes, yeah. Let me just go through the questions. There's a lot of people waving out at me, but no questions.
I'll wave, you
Hardik
ask the
Khanna.
questions.
Hardik Khanna has a question. Canon's color science for fashion stuff. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I like it. I like it. I
Amazing.
really like it. Yeah, it's just, I think the two best companies that are doing the color science really well right now, Fuji and Canon. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody else is kind of not like even there in the game. But again, it's the color science can only take you so much. It's like that dynamic range is a very big part about, I think, where this camera will be, for me at least. But
Okay.
I mean,
Any other questions? Sorry.
Kashish, hi
Any
sir. Hi sir,
Kashish.
Kashish.
How's it going? Kashish is our sponsor for people who don't know. He's going to be
Yeah.
gifting us an R5 each, right, Kashish?
Yeah.
Don't leave this conversation. If you stay, that means you're going to
I think he
send it
deleted his
out to
account.
us. Shadab, how's your experience with the X-T4? It was amazing, Shadab. Really good camera. Thank you for sending out to us.
Yeah. This is really good. I mean, the X-T4, again,
Yeah.
just if you give an out through the Atomos, you're
Yeah.
putting that camera somewhere that I feel like in a niche of its own. Like this, like
True.
having ProRes RAW on that X-T4,
Yeah.
just like it'll set everything perfect.
I had a couple of. I wasn't very happy with the autofocus, Shadab, in terms of videos. I felt like I kept on hunting, and I've seen this online as well with other reviewers. So I know Fuji will fix it. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, as of now, it is a really good camera, very well built. Rahul, you're asking like too many technical questions now. First about Ashit's profile picture. Now you're asking, can you do a quick review of Sony Alpha dynamic range compared to other
Brilliant.
cameras?
Done.
Yeah, done. We can talk about it.
No, it's. I think the Sony Alpha dynamic range is some of the best.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
also helps that these guys are Sony is kind of manufacturing Nikons, Fujis, and I don't know if it's Panasonic as well, but they're manufacturing most of the large players. What do you say, sensors. So we're going to get kind of like an even playing field, which I think is
Yeah.
good because then the camera
Yeah.
companies can focus on color science and they can focus on autofocus and stuff like that to make it better.
True. True.
Because that will kind of change like the way you look at a camera. Because
I agree.
I think the sensor technology is something that's been holding a lot of people back for a while.
I agree. Is there any way to do Nikon and iPad with wireless tethering? Uh,
I don't have a Nikon
I'm
or
not
an
sure.
iPad.
Suva, I will check. If you can send me a DM, I'll check and
I
I'll get
had
back to you.
wireless tethering. You had these little cards, but they were really shitty. I don't know if you have these. You seen these?
i5. What are those?
Yeah, something like an i5. I used
Sorry,
to
your
use it
video just paused.
with my thing. Is it better now?
Hmm. Yeah, it's better. It's better. Yeah.
I'm back. Yeah. So
Yeah, you're back.
so this is a Toshiba
Hmm.
16 GB. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, there. So this is what I used to use for tethering JPEGs, but it's not very good for anything else. We can do a giveaway with this. I
Yeah,
can
sure.
like this is about when a couple of thousand when you bought it. So if anybody just make when you put this up on IGTV or YouTube within the next
Yeah.
10 hours, the funniest comment will get this.
Okay. I think Rahul is winning this with the funny comments as of now. Um,
No
Sagar had a
sexist
question.
comments.
Sagar had a question. He was asking, does the R5 have animal AIF in video and photos? It does in photos. It doesn't have in videos. I'm just going to check.
I think it has in photos and videos.
Yeah, I'm just quickly
Yeah, it's
checking.
just but it's not seamless from what
Oh,
the
really?
reviewers are talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Again, this
It does
yeah,
have the it in photos and videos. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
but
Go ahead.
I mean it's like if you have continuous autofocus, I think it should work for animals as well, man. Unless you want the animal's eye to be in focus and you're doing wildlife exclusively, I don't think. I mean, you really need that much.
Though animal AF, like, so one of the other reasons why I picked up the Sony A7 R4 was because I shoot my cats. I don't know, they were around here somewhere, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
shoot
saw it
my
behind
cats a
your
lot.
head.
Yeah, the wavy tails. But I shoot them a lot, and what do I feed a couple of cats and dogs in our building. So I always like having my camera with me, and um, I loved how accurate the AF is in with the Sonys. I'm pretty
Mm.
sure the Canon is going to be as good or hopefully better. But yeah, IAF for me, for humans and for animals makes a big difference. Even if you're not shooting wildlife, and even if you just want a good camera, and if you have pets at home, or you like shooting the occasional dog or cat or bird flying in there, I think it makes
Mm.
it's a nice thing to have. It's
Yeah.
made my life easier.
No, I mean it's good. I mean, like honestly,
Yeah.
if they had the A9 autofocus in every camera, I'd be blown away by it. I mean, that's what's kind of defining it as well. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely autofocus is a big part of choosing a professional system. I think at least when you're doing more commercial and thing work, because you'd like to know that your camera is going on getting the things that you want in focus versus thing. I think like a lot of the lenses I have also with like my favorite lenses for the GFX system is a 45 f2.8, but because the focus is so slow, I don't use it.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
use
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
35, the 53.5, but because
50.5.
it
Yeah.
has way faster focus. And
Yeah.
it's, I mean,
Makes
there's
a big
definitely,
difference.
yeah, it's definitely a big part. I'd say
Yeah.
autofocus is the first priority for me, then followed by dynamic range, and then
Okay.
color science, and then megapixels. I don't really care about the
Okay.
megapixels as much as most people do.
Okay. Fair enough. I also wanted to ask you, I mean, since you do a lot of commercial work as well, do you get a lot of like queries about, not queries, like when people are hiring for a job, do they ask you what camera do you use and or how many megapixels it is? Is that a requirement?
They used to when I started off because
Okay.
that's kind of like the question that defines you of it used to be the question that defined you between being a professional photographer and amateur because if you're doing enough work
Got
you
it.
bought a camera enough with enough
Yeah.
megapixels, but I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
think anybody's asked me that question over the past 7 or 8 years. Except for this
Okay.
one art director from Ahmedabad asked me once, and I started laughing. So I don't think he ever asked that question to anybody else
Hmm.
after that.
So I work with a lot of different agencies and different production houses, and I get like the one-off odd requirement where okay, it has to be at least 50 megapixels.
Hmm.
But otherwise, yeah. Otherwise, I think for me, I would still always go for the highest megapixels I can afford to buy in terms of portability, in terms of everything, in terms of the whole package. But the megapixels make a big difference for me because um, I like shooting. I don't like changing lenses a lot.
Hmm.
So for me, currently, I just have like one a 24-105 zoom, and just in case, I mean, though, it gives me enough compression, but just in case the client needs to crop in on something, I don't need to reshoot and I don't need to shoot multiple frames. I just
Hmm.
shoot at 105 or I shoot at like 50, 60, and then I just if the client needs to crop in later on, he has that option.
Yeah, so I
And
think I think
yeah,
50 megapixels for that is enough. So like
yeah, yeah,
this is something
50.
that I should debate as well. I used to be like at 24, they'd be like, oh, this, but that I think. But when we got to about 40 to 50, that kind of
Yeah,
conversations
yeah,
kind of died,
true,
and I think that's
true,
that's a good place for it to like die as well. But
true.
I think 50 is good in terms of megapixels. Again, this is because most of our output, if like you look at it right now, is going to be only digital mostly because the print
True.
is to a large aspect. I think we're going to have a lot of
Yeah.
our print screens changed to LEDs everywhere you're going to look, right?
Okay.
So the LEDs also, when you're looking at it, the like the biggest size they could probably go to is an 8K, which is not even available right now. But I say a 2K
Sure.
at 40 feet will be clear enough for you. So
Sure.
at that point, and like an 8K screen is basically 50 megapixel resolution. So
Got it.
I don't know why we need to go past 8K. Like I really feel
Got it.
like the 100 megapixels is super overkill that we don't need right now.
Hmm. But it's amazing to zoom in on and like check out the details, man.
It
It is
is,
it is
it
addictive.
really is. But like after a while, it's like it's just for your own personal pleasure after a while, like
True.
and that's the
True.
biggest problem right now with my GFX 100 is just my laptop
Hmm.
can't handle it, man. It's just like it's just
Hmm.
I end up shooting, then slowing down, shooting, then slowing down, shooting, then slowing down. It's not
Yeah.
it's not conducive to any for like creative
True.
process. But I think 50 is a superb spot. We should just stick around there and just make the cameras faster focus,
Yeah. Yeah.
faster read speeds of the sensor so that we're not getting less. But I think that's kind of Sony's direction. Like, what do you think the A7 S3 is going to
Yes.
be?
That's for that we say that for another video. But the
No,
A7
like just
S3
predictions. What do you think? I think it's a good place to
predictions.
end this.
Yeah, our predictions. Okay. They've confirmed it's going to be at least 4K 60 4:2, I think.
No, no, let's
So
put money on this. Let's put
when
money
they
on this.
say at least, I think it's going to be at least 4K. I mean, it's definitely going to have a 4K 120. It's going to have 8K. But the question is it going to have a flip out screen like Canon, like what most people want, most vloggers, filmmakers, whatever? And
Hmm.
second is it going to have enough megapixels that it becomes an overall camera? Because again, see, with most manufacturers, or at least what Sony started doing was Sony started this whole trend where they had the R for the resolution, they had the S for the
Hmm.
sensitivity and video, and then they had the A7, the normal one, which was for like the overall decent camera. The
Hmm.
R5 now is giving me 45 megapixels, which is good enough for commercial work, as we discussed, and it's giving me 8K raw video, which is more than enough for video shooting. So, as an overall package, the R5 right now is amazing. Yes, the GFX 100, which costs double the money, gives you the much more. But the R5 for someone in the 3 lakh bracket, and who wants full frame, who wants
Hmm.
stuff like that, I feel like it's doing really well. Better than the A7 R4 at this point. I would rather have the 8K RAW than have the 45 than have the 60 megapixels. At least I would have a more balanced camera. And more than the 8K, I
Yeah.
I again, as we
I
discussed,
feel
the
no, but
compression.
you do know
Yeah.
that no, but you do know that Sony's changed the entire thing with a recent interview where they changed the S for sensitivity to S to superior. So
Superior.
I
So
think
okay,
definitely it's
okay.
going to be, yeah. So
Okay,
I think it's
interesting.
definitely going to be the same sensor as the A7R3. That's a 45 megapixel sensor. But
And
I
8K
feel
raw.
like they may bring out a faster read speed, 8K raw,
Okay, okay,
oversampled 4K.
okay.
Because I think they're also like looking at the whole tech of the SD cards Express, the new format. I think they've gone up over UHS 2. They've gone up to the next level right now.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
So the
USSD.
fast
Yeah,
SD card, something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
So I think they're gonna have it's going to be priced around 4,000, I think, as well for the Sony as well, and
Got it.
with 8K, I'm hoping for global shutter
Global
because
shutter.
if they do global shutter, and
Hmm.
this is the biggest part that will probably sell more Sonys than Canons. If they use the S Cinetone from the Venice and the FX9, if they bring that
Correct.
color science to the A7S3, that will be the change, like the whole change for everything. Because people that are already invested in the Sony system, like right now, and there was a huge move over from Canon to Sony. If they
Yeah,
only need to
yeah,
buy a body to get all of those things,
yeah,
they will. Instead of
yeah.
selling the entire system and moving to
True.
another format, right? And the thing is with
For sure.
Canon, the one disadvantage I see right now is because it's a whole new system, so it's new lenses, new camera bodies. So that's what I'm
It's a
saying.
big
When I want to go
investment.
pick it up,
It's a
yeah,
big.
when I want to go look at it, I'm looking at a 6 lakh base, 7.2 lakhs for everything, right?
Correct.
But with a Sony, if you already have the lenses, you already have like a 2470 or whatever it is, and they come out with a 3 lakh body, you're only going
Hmm.
to be spending a 3 lakh body.
True.
That's it. But it's
True.
just if they come out with the S Cinetone, I'd say it's going to be a really interesting competition, and
I
it's only good for the consumers.
and it's a realistic. What you're talking about is pretty realistic. It's not like it's out of the world and we're asking for something. This thing. I mean, they already have this tech. They already have the all these the log profiles and stuff like that. And they have. I mean, they've confirmed 8K. I mean, they've sorry confirmed 4K 60 minimum. So minimum.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's
but
that's
like
a that's a big statement.
yeah, when this thing came out, right, when the A92 came out, like honestly, if they had
Hmm.
made it the 45 megapixel sensor, I would have gotten the camera. Like it's just
True.
that's the
True.
thing that because I was like, it's not about the 20 megapixels or so. That sensor was pretty shit,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
was using. I shot. I didn't like that sensor. That's why like, I never went
Yeah.
with it. I was like, okay, fine, a little bit of work, but like you have to use an A9 to understand that that crazy autofocus. It's mad. Like in low light, you can just go
True.
like anywhere. But I think that also comes with the R5. I definitely want to test it out before uh, maybe dismissing the camera as a buy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I seriously considered it. I was like seriously considering and saying, okay, fine, what cameras does it replace in my system? But when it came to my GFX, I was like, no. Not even
Hmm. Hmm.
my 100. Again, talking about 50S only. I was like, no. It's just like that 50S does something so special in stills that I don't know if I can
So,
give
so
it up.
you're saying if someone had 3 lakhs right now to buy, I'm not forget the lenses and stuff like that, if just to buy a body, you would pick the 50S over the R5?
No,
If you were to
I'd probably
start from
pick the
scratch,
I'd probably
R5,
pick the
right?
R5. Yeah,
I
the
mean,
R5
you
because
can't. I mean,
it does
yeah,
more. It does more.
it
Because the thing
does
is,
more,
like,
and it's also. I mean, I love the 50S. I love the quality. I know exactly what you're talking about. I switched to Fuji because of the 50S. But I mean, for firstly, it's a 3 or 4 year old camera. So
hmm.
there is older tech and stuff like that. Everything is just
No,
much
that
slower.
sensor is about 8
Yeah,
years old.
yeah, the
That's the
sensor,
bigger thing. Yeah,
which which is still fine. The
yeah.
I was impressed with it in low light. I was impressed with it in everything. I'm happy with the sensor. But if you're getting so much more for the same price, you're getting all these things, flashy new things.
Hmm.
It's a tough.
Yeah, no, I mean, it takes a really like a nuanced look at what kind of image quality do you get as a benefit from medium format to actually make that. So it's like if you
Correct.
are primarily doing commercial work only, and this is your like stills is your main focus, and then you were looking at buying a camera, I'd say I still lean towards the GFX, but again, it's not as easy a camera to use as the
True.
like
It's a niche camera. Yeah,
yeah
yeah. I wouldn't
because
suggest that to someone who's already using a 5D